Hi everyone, warm welcome. Welcome to our VOH Talk to the Expert session. Today, very lucky to have Dr. Jitendra Sharma with us. He's CEO at AMTZ. Myself, I'm Sanjay Jha. I'm a director with Collateral Medical right now. My quick background is I'm a graduate from IIT Kharagpur. I've worked in medical device industry for more than 20 years, worked in R&D as well as sales and marketing and distribution. I worked with G Healthcare in the US and have a few US patents on my name, and then came back to India and been in India for the last almost 13, 14 years. So it's a pleasure to welcome Dr. Sharma. Dr. Sharma, it would be great if you could just briefly talk about yourself.
Namaskar, dear viewers and healthcare professionals. I am Dr. Jitendra Sharma. I am a hospital administrator. I was a hospital administrator and a health economist and medical technologist. I had the privilege of working right from a primary health center to the headquarters of WHO in Geneva. I was fortunate to set up the healthcare technology department at the National Health System Resource Center in the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India. As part of that work, we designed the concept of a medical technology zone, and I'm the founder managing director of AMTZ, which is Asia's first medical equipment manufacturing zone. Besides that, I also work as the founder executive director of Kalam Institute of Health Technology, a technology policy agency set up with the support of Department of Biotechnology, Government of India, to provide medical technology support to the various departments, medical technology policy support to the various departments and ministries of Government of India. I also serve as a distinguished senior fellow at Niti Aayog. My specialization remains medical technology and its application in the healthcare domain, essentially taking innovation into product realization mode. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Sharma. So right now, as all of us know, there's one and only thing to talk about, which is COVID-19. And we have already seen PPE, personal protective equipments. We do not have the stock. We do not have the right quality. Okay, we keep hearing lots of stories about scarcity of PPE in our country. Can you please tell us something about PPE and what's happening in this area?
So, if you look at PPE, or in fact any medical technology, the fundamental principles are only three. What is it made of, and who are the suppliers? Are those suppliers of reasonable quality or not? Number two, whether that product, including PPE, goes through a quality check or not. And three, does the buyer have the right specifications or not? So whatever product you ask me, I will keep throwing these three principles on that product. And let us take the example of PPE. Now, all PPE would be needing to be made from spun-bound fabric.
Yes.
Now, spun-bound fabric is available in India. Yes, its availability in the conditions of lockdown, particularly when migrant workers are moving back to their towns and villages, is obviously a natural restriction. And that has nothing to do with the manufacturing capability of PPE. Because if this workforce was to be there, and if the supply of spun-bound fabric was to be there, the current manufacturing capability would perhaps, and I'm saying perhaps, be capable of handling the demand. That's where we come to the subset of ingredient, which is quality and its standards. 4 or 5 labs, or 6 labs, or 10 labs, then these labs can serve for the quality assurance of fabric for PPE and for the PPE itself at multiple clusters and locations, which would have its impact on the pipeline and on the industrial capability of PPE. Then comes the subset of PPE, which is the method and standard of making it. Now, while Indian PPE, and we are all used to stitched gowns, but in between the stitches, there would be a gap and the infection can pass through.
Correct.
So for the PPE, we need ultrasonic machine welding and taping. But the ultrasonic welding machines are not available in India, and they have to come either from Sri Lanka or China. So if you just look at the example of PPE, we have right from supply of fabric, which is hit because of various valid reasons, to the standard setting and testing institution, which is CITRA, which is just one for the entire country, to supply of ultrasonic machine, all impacting the ingredients of PPE, which is first principle. The second principle are the standards. So PPE either has to undergo standards of ASTM, which are standards for biomaterial, or they have to undergo standard of ISO 14126. Now, these standards have to be tested in labs, and there are not enough laboratories that can do the tests, which means in a pressurized system, how can we test a fabric through a threshold prescribed in the standard and consider it safe? We don't have enough of those labs. And number three is, does the buyer have, and the third principle, does the buyer have the right specifications? In our case, these specifications were made public only on the 24th of March, 2020, which was perhaps a bit late. Not that the specifications didn't exist, but the supplier should know that the buyer, which is a hospital, will not compromise on specs. If we were to put these three principles together, the solution would be, can we have pipeline of fabric? Can we have sufficient ultrasonic welding machines? Can we have enough labs for certifying the fabric? Can we have right standard validation laboratory ecosystem in the country? And can we have the right specifications well in advance so that the sellers can know what the buyer wants? We put 5 of these 3 things together. Somebody takes a responsibility, the solution is within our reach.
Wow, that is very, very different from what my understanding was. And thanks a lot for clarifying that. I thought it's, while yes, lab is a problem, labor was a problem, but I used to think that we do not have manufacturing capability. And I was glad to know that I was wrong. It's a very, very good feeling that I'm wrong for that perspective. And but other thing I've seen in PPE, I looked at those specs, okay, government specs. But majority of those specs are, it's extremely difficult to meet in this short time frame, right? Unless the guy knew, unless if I'm me being manufacturer, I already know that these are the specs I need, then I can plan accordingly.
That was my principle 3.
Okay.
And if you have enough ultrasonic welding machines in India and enough labs to test, we will have the capability to meet those specs.
Wow. Thanks a lot. That was wonderful clarification.
So it's not that our suppliers don't want to meet specs.
Yeah.
It's not they don't have capability to meet specs. It's that we have not looked at the problem in piecemeal basis and found solutions to each of them and aligned them.
If I look at majority of the 3-ply manufacturer, okay, at least the known ones, they have ultrasonic machine, right? For because even for 3-ply, the same thing is required. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? So, but for PPE guys, we and also we never had that this kind of requirement earlier, right? This is a very, very unique case. Okay. Thanks for clarifying that. Moving on to the next one. So, as the number of COVID-19 patients are rising, and workload on hospital will also increase. And we have already seen that every hospital is preparing for that. What do you think about our supply? Okay, one is PPE we covered. What about other things?
So, I know whenever we talk of COVID-related medical equipment supply, we get into the mad rush of ventilators. But right at, right at the outset, I want to share with the viewers that no ventilator is used by itself alone. You need multi-para monitors, you need pulse oximeters, you need oxygen concentrators, you need oxygen supply lines, and multiple other accessories like tubings which would make ventilator a part of the whole care system. Now, broadly, that brings us to the fundamental acceptance of the fact that India is import dependent on medical equipment to the extent of 80%. And that's why today, whenever we talk of COVID, we are not talking of pharmaceuticals, drugs, because we know we are independent and capable of serving other countries as well. But in medical equipment, fundamentally, we have been on a weaker spot economically and technologically. One of the reasons is we do not have sufficient laboratories and sufficient ingredients in a medtech ecosystem. And that's the reason why AP Medtech Zone was created in Visakhapatnam with the support of Government of AP and Government of India, so that we could put together the entire laboratory ecosystem and the ingredients of a technology pipeline to allow manufacturers make right from a thermometer to an MRI, which we are able to make successfully today. But if you look at critical care equipment that we tremendously would perhaps need, which is ventilators, pulse oximeters, multi-para monitors, and so on, these medical equipment, they require multiple ingredients like sensors, turbines, blenders, humidifiers, compressors, and so on. Not all of these are available in India. And that is where the Government of India has created multiple empowered groups to handle one aspect of COVID management. The group, which is led by Secretary of Pharmaceuticals, Government of India, and has very senior team of 8 or 10 officers, they are looking at the procurement of all these and are actually supporting industry by, one, bridging their supply chain gap by facilitating air freight cargoes of critical components from the supplier countries, by ensuring that right specs are brought into public domain at the right time, and by consolidating the demand of the entire country and breaking it into baskets and giving those baskets through the National Procurement Agency through to various capable manufacturers, including clusters like AMTZ. But the fundamental understanding around critical care equipment would also need to account for the new innovations that are coming, because we keep hearing every other second a new ventilator is being made. Here I would like to just mention two things. One, whether we make a traditional ventilator or an innovative product in the times of crisis, one, its ingredients have to be available in India. And if not available, supply of those critical spares and components have to be facilitated to Indian manufacturing site. And two, each of these products have to undergo basic safety testing for electrical safety and electromagnetic interference and biocompatibility in standardized laboratories, so that while we are encouraging innovations, we are not risking the patient.
Completely agree. I think day before yesterday, I talked to a junior from IIT. Okay, he works at MIT, and he's involved in that ventilator embo bag project. Okay, you might have seen that because in news a couple of days ago. Okay, but the support he's able to generate from his college and from the government, right? And here also we have IITs, we have very good institutes. Okay, and me being an ex-R&D guy, okay, when I came back to India, I wanted to do R&D, but I gave up. Okay, so I think this is where people like you would be of immense help, immense support, where these young talented people, they can do things which they love to do and help our country.
And that is why, and as an ecosystem, we play a very strong bridge between innovators and manufacturers.
Correct.
Because it's not that even manufacturers know everything. Sometimes a large number of circumstances, even they are looking for technologies and innovations in their production value chain.
Yes.
And that's where, as a medical technology cluster, we are able to play a very important role, not just connecting manufacturers into testing, validation, and market access, but also connecting innovators to manufacturers.
Yes. Excellent. So let's talk a little bit about ventilator. A little bit more, okay. I had been, so we run a trading company. So I've been trying to source ventilator, okay. Even in China, I hear that they majority of the manufacturers, they don't have anything in ready stock. They cannot give you anything for next 1.5, 2 months. Indian companies, I talk to some of the companies who have low-end ventilator, okay, which might be something better than nothing, but okay, we could get 1,000 or 2,000 availability in next 3 months, but hardly anybody there, okay, who can give us the mass we are looking for. In India, we have around 40, 50,000 ventilators installed in hospitals right now, okay, and at least a lakh, like yesterday. So while I found that other products like monitors and suction machines, okay, they're not that difficult to source. Okay, but ventilators especially is a big niggling problem in sourcing. So what's your view on just ventilator?
So we are working in two aspects. Aspect number one is that now we have a repository of all the innovators, almost 56 of them that are working on some kind of ventilator project. We are ensuring that if they reach out to us and as and when we reach out to them, we are able to provide them the right guidance, the right hand holding, the right degree of support for them to leapfrog from a design or conceptual stage into a prototype stage.
Very good.
Number two, we have a beautiful scheme which is funded by the Department of Biotechnology and the World Bank, where if an established manufacturer of ventilator was to come to a manufacturing cluster like AMTZ, we are able to support them with the entire cost of plant and machinery so that their capital requirement goes down and their incremental production can go up. And we have partnered with several agencies on that. And the third is that the mega industrial houses, many of them have actually gone on a public cause mode to rapidly manufacture ventilators even in their automobile factories. We are in touch with them on a daily basis, ensuring that the right biomedical engineering knowledge is exchanged with them, and they are connected with the critical components and spare parts supplier, and their comprehensive understanding on ventilator production is augmented with our partnership.
Amazing. So do let us know if you, from VOH side, if you could be of any help and whatever way you can support this.
Absolutely.
Good to know. Okay. So what about our capacity in terms of overall equipment manufacturing? So we talked about PPE, we talked about ventilators and everything else in the middle, which we talked about. So how do we see we faring? Because I don't see big brands. If I see big brands in India, it's mostly private label where they import and they just put their stamp, right? So how do we see the domestic production going up?
Yeah, so that's a very important question that you asked. But before I answer that, I would also like to mention about the third important element in the entire COVID management, which is diagnostic kits.
Yes,
very much. And diagnostic kits, we have about 25 applications approved by ICMR, in which only 3 are Indian companies. Fortunately, one of the Indian companies is with AMTZ. And just today we have started a trial run production of about 2,000 kits per day with a net capacity to go up to 25,000 kits per day.
PCR or rapid?
PCR based 25,000 kits per day in next 15 days would be our capacity. But if you look at the capacity of the 3 Indian companies who are not importing but making in India or substantially making in India, we are actually now in a stage where we can manufacture about 1 lakh kits per day, 100,000 kits a day, which by no standard is less. It's quite substantial and noteworthy. Now, if you were to look at all other medical equipment, we are on the back foot as we have always been. And AMTZ is one model where we have cracked this problem by creating a technological and techno-commercial ecosystem for all medical equipment manufacturers. And AMTZ has been working with Department of Pharmaceuticals, which is the parent department for medical devices in Government of India, and has supported Department of Pharmaceuticals substantially, of course, led by the Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers and the Department of Pharma itself. And their recent proposal to set up 4 more medical technology zones on the lines of AMTZ, approved by the Union Cabinet and the Government of India, is something which is a big blockbuster step, because one AMTZ can actually create a value of about 20,000 crore worth of medical equipment per annum. And if we talk of 5 AMTZs in the country, or 5 AMTZ like medical technology clusters in the country, we are talking of 100,000 crore worth of medical equipment production in every year, 3 years from now. And our current import dependency is about 42,000 crore per annum.
Correct.
Which means even in 3 years, if that 42,000 crore were to increase to 60 or 70,000 crore, in 3 years, our domestic production capacity would reach 1 lakh crore. And we will be not only neutralizing our import, but will also be an exporting nation. It's of course a long-term strategy. Within that, the short-term strategy of rapid manufacturing scale-up of ventilators and other items for COVID is part of the game plan, or part of the national strategy.
I got to admit one thing. Before we started talking, I was very pessimistic. And suddenly I'm filled with optimism right now after talking to you. So thanks a lot for that. But one thing I don't understand, and you might not want to comment on that, pharmaceutical department, okay, working on medical devices, it doesn't, I don't see that the same principle on eye to eye, because I've been in medical device and I have lots of people who have worked in pharmaceuticals. They are different business. It's technology, it's manufacturing and chemicals, right? So I think we might have to have some better solution in future, but this is what we have to work with, right?
Absolutely. So while the major central facility in an API park for pharmaceutical could be affluent treatment plant, medical technology has no affluent. In fact, a drop of water can lead to a short circuit.
Correct.
But medical technology manufacturing would require biomaterial characterization, accelerated aging systems, confocal microscopes, transmission electron microscope, the electromagnetic interference semi-anechoic chamber, the gamma irradiation plant, the 3D printing, all of which are technological interventions.
Correct.
And therefore, if a country has to leapfrog from a basic to an incrementally progressive value chain in medtech, they need to invest on technological infrastructure.
Completely agree. So next thing, so most of the people here are drifting away from China, right? Even Trump even called it a Chinese virus. Okay. So what do you think? Do you think that India has more opportunity in terms of medtech right now, because people are trying to stay away from China?
So I of course wouldn't like to comment on the external affairs part of the strategy or the choices we have, but China is not just for medtech. China is an engineering hotbed and has been so for decades. And therefore, since medtech is actually an aggregation of many engineering sciences. It has mechanical, electrical, electronic, biomedical, laser, and whatnot, depending upon the class or category of medical product that we are talking about. Now, obviously, with the restrictions of travel, and these restrictions will take its own time, even to be weaned off gradually. Right. Not just India, but entire BRICS, China, which already has, but Brazil, India, Russia, South Africa, they have a chance to leapfrog into manufacturing destination for complex engineering. That complex engineering could be a microscope or medtech. It just doesn't matter, because the value chain and the component aggregation of these cluster of products are very similar, if not same. India does have this potential, as it has always had. I think we need to bring three things together. The core engineering and component production facility, in which, in fact, in India, Ministry of Electronics and IT is playing a very important role. They have just released 3 days ago 3 different schemes where manufacturers can actually apply for capital funding for creating of important critical components that go into multiple electronic products in segments, including medical devices. So that's one, which is creating a pipeline, manufacturing pipeline for important critical electronic components. The second is the medical technology zones, where you can bring science and business together in a technological ecosystem, and allow validation laboratories and scientific labs to test the products. Excuse me. And the third is creating marketplaces like GEM, the government marketplace for production.
In my GE healthcare days, I've seen that we used to do lots of cross-licensing events for our competition, like Siemens and vice versa. Look at the mobile phones, we still see that happening. Everybody cross-licenses. I have not seen much of cross-licensing happening in India. I might be completely wrong or not aware. What's your thought on that?
No, that's a very important question. In fact, in medical technology, we have to understand that this science is owned by 3 or 4 people in the world in every product. Yes. An MRI which has superconducting magnet in it makes almost 80% of the cost of an MRI. Correct. And there are just 2 people in the world who make, for example, the superconducting magnet.
Yes.
Similarly, 70% of the cost of a CT scan is its tube, and there are only 4 or 5 people who make the tube. So while licensing is a difficult imagination to have, because one of the 2 or one of the 3 owners of the technology, in all probability, would not like to lose the grip. What we can look at is the facilitation towards joint ventures.
Yes.
In which, while the owner of the technology brings in the know-how, the joint venture partner, who could be an Indian company, brings in the market access.
Correct.
And because of this market access, which will eventually help the technology owner occupy a larger market share, get to a larger market share, these joint ventures could be both sustainable, technologically, as well as economically.
That's a good thought. So, okay, I accept that point, even from my angle.
So we have some experiments right in AMTZ of this model.
Because right now the biggest challenge I see is supply chain. Right, product might be available, but supply chain is completely broken. So I actually believe that you might have different locations where everything has to be self-sustainable.
Right.
That model.
Right. And that is why I mentioned the word market access in my 3 requirements earlier, because market access within the government and within the private sector are 2 different ball games. Within the government, we use GEM, the government e-marketplace, which is an electronic mode of requisitioning and selecting the vendor. Whereas in private sector, we still have rudimentary methods of connections and phone calls and so on, and negotiations. And in fact, now there are other e-commerce portals like Medica Bazaar, an Indian homegrown company, which has come up and said, just a market.
You're missing my company name. That's called Collateral Medical. We are.
Yeah, and these marketplaces are valuable because they allow private businesses to compare medical technologies, and know at the best cost, and make an offer. Now, it is this market that puts the back-end logistic supply chain in order.
Completely accepted. So how do we see our future in terms of COVID-19 fight?
Well, the future is robust, not just for us, because we are not alone in the universe, for the whole world. We just need to keep our eyes and ears open so that we learn from others, we learn from experience. That is the job of our eyes. And the job of the ears is to accept willingly and follow the guidelines that are being issued by various national governments. Because only citizens, and I had a very, very beautiful message today, which says VIRUS. And if you remove I and U, you are left with VRS.
Yes.
So what can break a virus chain is only I and U. And what various governments do is to tell I and you what not to do and what to do. And as citizens, I think if we accept that, we have, in fact, except for hotspots in India, India has given a tremendous fight back to this calamity. Eventually, with our production capacities of ventilators and diagnostic kits zooming up, we should be even able to come to assistance of many of our international friends, other countries, who are battling this by themselves.
Yes.
That would be an important diplomatic outreach in coming to their aid at the times of crisis, using the strength that India has, which also in the long run will make India a preferred destination and a supplier of many of the products at most affordable costs, because universal healthcare can be achieved only if medical technology is accessible and affordable.
Yeah, and it looks like we are getting there. I'm really amazed at the way we have fought it out. We have done much better than most of the country, but every good thing also has some improvement areas. What do you think we should have done better?
So, if you were to ask me, very simple things we could have perhaps done better, and I'm only talking of medical technology. Of course, there are things like allowing mass gatherings, whether it is conferences or religious meets or scientific events, very early. We could have avoided that. But things that we could have done better in our effort.
Yes.
Good. I'm just saying that it's not that we have failed. It's just that even at 90 or 88 marks out of 100, you could always imagine that if you would have got 2 more, you would have gone into A+ grade. And so my suggestions are not criticisms by any means. They are value improvement suggestions in a very limited wisdom. Number one that we could have done early is to have declared the specifications of personal protective equipment.
Okay.
Right by mid-February, because 31st January, WHO declared COVID as an international pandemic. And we could have something as simple as personal protective equipment, masks, gowns, gloves, 2 covers. We could have declared their specs right by mid-February, which we perhaps did 40 days later. Number 2, we could have had more labs certified to validate personal protective equipment rather than having just one. And these capacities are not built overnight, so there was a few weeks or months needed to build up that capacity. Number 3 is for quite some time we had only one lab in Pune validating diagnostic kits for those who were making it. Later it was expanded to 5. Even those 5 are taking time to build their capacity. We could have declared we could have declared more laboratories capable of certifying diagnostic kits. Number 4, we could make a more comprehensive planning so that our over focus on ventilators does not reduce our importance to other equipment that is used with ventilators, like multipara monitors and pulse oximeters, which are very essential for monitoring patients. And 5, of course, the efficacies of various treatment profiles on the patients who are getting cured. We have a substantial number of patients who have got cured from COVID and have been discharged, and their treatment strategies is not yet widely known.
Hey, that's interesting.
Right. So, and the treatment strategy has to be taken forth through the medical practitioners associations into their members. And I think with these 5 things, right from PPE to treatment, if we could do a bit more effort, and I'm not saying effort quantitatively, more effort qualitatively, more comprehensively, a bit more thinking rather than bit more doing, we would be in a stronger patch in our fight.
Well, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for you taking time out from your busy schedule. And I'm surely much more optimistic after this talk with you before I started. So it's young guys like you who take our country to the next step. And I really appreciate your time for this. And let's all wish our country a very successful fight with COVID-19. Thanks.
And also in the spirit of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam,
Yes.
Our entire global fraternity of citizens and healthcare workers and biomedical engineers and medical technologists, a very collective and strong fight back,
Completely.
and a victorious situation very soon. We wish for that. Jai Hind.
Perfect. Jai Hind.